Hey everybody and welcome back to the channel. So, if the question were put to you, how strong should vehicles be in comparison to infantry, what would you say? Do you think Battlefield 2042 got it right? Not too scary at all? Or would you say that Battlefield 5 had a better balance, where a tank turning up is actually a little bit of a boss fight? You'll see why I opened the doors in just a second. Just need a little more. Come on, you know I did well there. Or would you prefer it's like Battlefield 1, where a tank rolling up on an objective is basically nigh on impossible to kill unless you make a very concerted team effort to take them down? Whilst I show you my best efforts at trying to defeat a tank in Battlefield 1, let me explain what this video is about properly. As you've probably seen, a chap called Benbit has pulled together a community survey to try and give feedback to DICE as to what the next Battlefield should look and feel like. Having read the survey, I think he did an excellent job, and I really applaud initiatives like this, so I figured I'd try and do my little bit to try and help. The survey is far too long to go through question by question, and as tried, it didn't work for me. So I've instead decided to focus on what I personally consider to be the 6 most important questions in the survey and use real gameplay evidence from BF 2042, BF5 and BF1 to try and substantiate my points. And I've tried to choose a good split of infantry, which is not necessarily my strongest bag, and vehicle gameplay, which I consider myself to be much better at, relatively speaking. But look, just to be clear guys, everything I say in this video is just my opinion, and there's nothing saying I'm right, okay? What I'd really like from this video is to hear your opinions, and if you do leave a message, imagine someone from DICE who are gonna read it. What would you say to them? You never know, they just might. Can you believe that for all of that effort, I still didn't get the kill? Okay, so now we're all hopefully on the same page as to what we're doing here. Let's get back and close out the first question. How strong should vehicles be relative to infantry? Now, 2042 isn't bad, but in my opinion, tanks particularly get overpowered very quickly. And I'm going to stick with main battle tanks because they appear universally in all the titles I'm talking about. I would suggest to you that Battlefield 5 struck the best balance from all the Battlefields I've played, 2042, 5 and 1, between tanks being quite terrifying, frankly, at taking out infantry, but also being defeatable. You can't just drop in from the sky like you do in 2042. If you want to defeat a tank, you've actually got to target the weak spots, otherwise you're not going to take it down. At least not without an exceptionally high body count before you do eventually overpower it. Now, I don't want to say too much because I've only just started playing Battlefield 1, but my first impressions after a week of playing certainly is that it's a very imbalanced relationship between vehicles and infantry in favor of vehicles. You can hit them with absolutely everything and they will not go down. The only vehicle I've ever managed to solo was a light tank. Dynamite doesn't stick to vehicles, so I only managed to do this because it wasn't moving. I genuinely thought it was dead. Nope, that thing's alive and still shooting at me. So yeah, my conclusion, BF5 got it right. Right, this next question is extremely close to my heart. It's generally about which class system should the next Battlefield employ, but I really want to talk specifically about Engineer. I really love that in 2042 it carries both the repair function and the destructive element when it comes to vehicles. In BF5 and BF1, these roles are separated. Support does vehicle repair, assault does vehicle damage. But by having them combined, you never have any downtime and you're always busy as a player. And it gives you really unique gameplay. Remember to make sure the jet's turning before you take your shot.
Enemy vehicle neutralized!
And if you don't like leads, remember you can do the same thing with Crawford.
Enemy vehicle destroyed!
When it comes to locking weapons to classes, I agree broadly. Assault should have assault rifles, support should have the LMG, recon should have the sniper rifles. Things like marksman's rifles, submachine guns, shotguns, maybe there's a bit of grey area. But what I would say, and I hope people would support, is that the engineer should be the class that has the anti-material rifle, because it just makes sense that we do. The entire point of the anti-material rifle, after all, is to take out armor. Why would you not give it to the armor hunting class? Here's a fun little example of why you should let us keep it.
There's a sniper off
He's
to the
coming.
right.
He's coming.
We got past my mines on that one.
Hit him. Ah, he hit the tree. Finish him. Nice. Oh, perfect.
Fun with Crazy Tool and the gang. Check out his channel, he's loads of fun. But look, I firmly believe in class identity, and I remember back in early 2042, I think up till Season 4, when the specialists could do whatever they wanted, I had a pike that used the M5 recoilless rocket launcher, in addition to having C5 and whatever gun I wanted, and it was a little bit silly. I very much applaud what DICE did with 2042 to move back towards what I now know to be a traditional class system, having played BF5 and BF1, and certainly as an engineer giving me my space to do what I do best, wreck vehicles. And I'll round off my answer to this question by saying, long may that continue into the next game. You're probably noticing I have a slight bias towards Battlefield 5, but that brings us to the next question, which some of you are not going to like, and I am prepared to get flamed over this, but let's see what happens. Now, whilst I absolutely don't want specialists, their voice lines or whatever, and I want classes, that doesn't mean I want their innovation and their equipment to disappear. I really like some of the specialist equipment they brought to the game, and it's not like this is new to Battlefield.
No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of innovation to spice things up a bit and make it more interesting. But let's stick with Dozer's Riot Shield for a minute. Now, I know a lot of people don't like this. I read it on Ghost Gaming, Enders, and other pages, etc. And there are certainly things I would tweak. I wouldn't let you have the shield and the primary weapon. I would have the shield be breakable, etc, etc. But it added a whole new layer of cooperation and gameplay into maps like Redacted that otherwise wouldn't be there. And giving that up, personally, I think would be a massive step backwards. Especially on maps like Redacted, where otherwise we'll just be standing in corridors throwing grenades at each other and over again. Yay. Other abilities like Pike's wall hack, I mean, personally I love it. I'm not going to be a hypocrite, but I get that some people don't like it, but I do love catching out campers. Just like that as an example. But yeah, I get that for some people, particularly being able to see through walls is getting a little bit too close to hero shooter territory, moving away from traditional Battlefield. And that's true, it is. But I really enjoyed it, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite. Equally, we can't go through every single specialist piece of equipment here, but for example, the wingsuit. It's brilliant. People enjoy it. Do you really want to take it out of the game? I don't know, that feels like winding the clock back unnecessarily. And to players that complain that, oh, these abilities don't have counters, yes they do. Here's how you beat a dozer. But seeing as by this point I've probably upset a few people, let's go all in and double down on it. The TGM missile launcher, particularly shoulder-mounted ones carried by players. Now I am aware this is polarizing amongst the community to say the least, but here's my position on it. As long as these things, these, in my opinion, overpowered death machines, continue to exist in a future Battlefield title, the TGM missile launcher must also continue to exist to counter it. Now, before anyone tells me to get good, I would encourage you to have a look at my channel. I have done more than enough to wreck Nightbirds using shoulder-mounted launchers, tanks, jets, helis, you name it. I have had far too many gaming evenings where if I or a player like me didn't pick up leads and intervene to shut down a dominant Nightbird pilot, the evening would have been absolutely no fun because our team was getting run over. The truth is, particularly all my fellow players who don't go after aircraft and continue to be protected by us anti-air players, you need us. And allow me to defer to the words of another who put it far more eloquently than I ever could.
You don't want the truth because deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide, and then questions the manner in which I provide it. I would rather you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise, I suggest you pick up a weapon and stand a post.
I hope you took that with the humor that it was intended with, but you get my position. If the Nightbird stays, TGM stays. What do you think?
Upside down!
Okay, let's change gear a little bit and start talking about some vehicle gameplay. Now, for those of you who don't know, like I didn't until recently, in Battlefield 5, vehicles have not only limited ammunition, but more importantly, as you're going to see in this video, limited mitigations and cooldowns too. This is in direct contrast to 2042, where everything just infinitely regenerates. Now, I'm not usually a fan of killstreak videos, but I have to let this run to make the point. I'll be as brief as possible. So because I don't have to resupply, for those of you who are not familiar with this map, I've pretty much made it up to their spawn now, and I've gotten them pinned in, and there is nothing forcing me to withdraw, which means the other team isn't going to get an opportunity to break out unless they can push me away.
Attack! 130 meters away!
However, having my mitigations, in this case the active protection system, on a never-ending cooldown loop, as long as I use cover intelligently, which I would like to suggest I am doing here, it's very, very hard to get rid of me, especially if I have engineers helping me out and auto health regeneration too.
Perfect!
So hopefully I'm getting across the argument as to why a resupply mechanic might actually be a good thing in the next Battlefield title, especially when you consider how dominant aircraft is as well. I mean, could you imagine the difference to balance it would make if Apaches, Nightbirds, etc. had to go back to resupply after dropping all their missiles?
Hostile tank sighted!
Again, just know when to back off, don't be greedy, there's no rush.
Move away! Our fucking day!
Okay, I'm going to cut the camera here, but just know that nothing pushed me off, and I hope you don't find this killstreak arrogant. I don't like doing it, but as I say, it's necessary to make the point. So that's the argument for why there should be a resupply mechanic. Let's take a look at the counter. So just quickly for those who don't know, this is a resupply station from Battlefield 5. Any player can build them, providing the tank gets off the space. Would you move, please? And they're typically located within objectives. Once constructed, any tank can roll up and take basically an infinite number of tank shells and, more importantly, instant repairs. This means, particularly as you get more strategic in your tank battles in BF5, you're going to want to move from supply station to supply station. And at the beginning of a round, certainly, you're going to want to rush and get in position as quickly as you can, because whoever holds leads has an enormous advantage over the other team, as you're going to see. So what you're seeing here now is me making my way carefully towards Objective E, but I'm spending my ammo, and I'm also, as you're about to see, taking an awful lot of damage along the way. So I've made it into E, but here comes the counterattack. However, I'm able to roll up to my friend the reload station, which I'm taking advantage of now, and as you can see, I can continue to keep using it and just repair myself, never ending. Now, I love Battlefield 5, but this is unbelievably broken. So here comes the clutch moment. One tank down. Can the two of them remaining overpower me before I get back to the reload station? Now, they nearly got me and I'm a wreck, but a slight reverse back to the reload station, and a few seconds later, I'm absolutely fine. So that's it. They've got to push across the open field again, and I'm sitting right next to my infinite repair machine. Now that light vehicle did well. Watch what happens next. Beautiful hit straight to my weak point. But as long as I can get back to the repair station, it won't come to anything. Just need to push this guy away so he doesn't interrupt my repairs. And that's it. They've got no choice but to retreat, and I'm fully repaired again. So hopefully I'm getting across two things by demonstrating this resupply mechanic, particularly if you've never seen it before. It brings a lot of good gameplay in that it forces you to be very strategic in terms of how you move and calculate your pushes to make sure that, you know, you've got a way out on the other end. But they do need to significantly lengthen, and I think roughly a minute would be right, the cooldown period between using the resupply point. Otherwise, it's just not fair on the attacking team. And just watch these final 20 seconds play out. It tells you everything you need to know. They never had a chance. The last thing I would say on this point, which is a good segue to the next question, is if you're going to go with the Battlefield 1 model with very slow vehicle gameplay, you can't go for the resupply model. It just wouldn't be fun. Let's enjoy a little bit of tank play just so you can see for yourselves in case you've never seen this. You have to give Battlefield 1 points for atmosphere. I mean, it is an absolutely beautiful game. But it does have one mechanic I definitely would not bring to the next Battlefield. Now, the way repair works in Battlefield 1 is you can repair infinitely, no limitations, from inside the vehicle. This is too much. Combined with the exceptionally high HP they have in this game, it's too far. Anyway, I hope that section made sense, particularly if not a vehicle player. It's important to get right for the next game. Right, this brings us on to the next question. Game speed, overall tempo. Compared to Battlefield 5 and particularly Battlefield 1, 2042 is fast. Some might even call it arcadey. Now let's look at both vehicles and infantry, starting with vehicles. I really enjoy how you can push exceptionally quickly to rush down an objective in 2042 and then fall back as necessary. Having fast vehicles also gives the ability to go on a flank, particularly at the beginning of a round, which again in Battlefield 5 and Battlefield 1, it just isn't possible. This is something which in my opinion Battlefield 2042 got right, much more so than the other titles. I think hit and run is a very good gameplay mechanic to have. That's the hit, now we need to run. And you get to do cool things like that. On Battlefield 5, even when you modify your tank to have 30% extra speed, you're still pretty much every single time just gonna come head to head with your opponent on the front line. For all I've played it, which is quite substantial, I've never managed to actually get around my opponent, ever in a single match.
We now have control of objective dog.
There is, however, a flip side to this, particularly when you're using slow-moving vehicles like the Tiger tank. And that is positioning and knowing where your exits are become incredibly important if you want to be effective. So my plan here is to very deliberately slowly work my way up to a junction where I know I'm going to have the enemy choked. Right, so I'm in position, and because I don't have speed like 2042, what I want to convey here with this clip is it's very important as a tank player to know when it's time to get the hell out of there. There's no active protection with high speed to get you out of trouble. You're not going to get your cooldowns reloading. It's one and done. It's much less about reflexes and much more about good planning. It's just different. Now watch as they get their game together and it starts to tip against me.
Keep going.
Okay, it's time to leave. Did I leave it too late? Hopefully that conveys from a vehicle point of view the difference that speed makes in terms of the gameplay. Just for completeness, with Battlefield 1, it is a single speed game, right? This is basically as fast as you're ever going to go when you drive a tank. At least in my experience. I'm fairly new, maybe there's a vehicle I haven't unlocked yet, I've not seen. Whilst I know a lot of people appreciate this style of gameplay, I find it quite donkey plodding, and it limits my options as a tank player. All I can do is roll forward, and once I've committed, that's it. There's nowhere to go. You just either win or you die. And I just have to be completely honest, having started in 2042 and worked my way back, not a massive fan of it. It's just not exciting enough. Even though it is extremely beautiful, I'm not going to knock the visuals of this game. But moving on to infantry gameplay, this is where I think speed really counts. I know a great many people are not going to agree with this, but I actually really enjoy the tempo of 2042. I like it being faster than Battlefield 5. I really like how much faster it is than Battlefield 1. The fights are punchy, the flanks are fast and wide. I really enjoy it. I'll get to it in just a moment, but I have to say I'm personally quite confused why so many of the community feel that Battlefield 1 was the gold standard of gunplay. Maybe I'm not a real Battlefielder, but I love this. Now I just had a bit of a go at Battlefield 1, so let me just explain why. Yes, of course you can flank in Battlefield 1. You can get amongst the snipers, you can gun them down. The problem is it's hard because you move slowly, and playing assault, your gun has very short range. Let's have a look at one more push before I move on to the next point. But here's my real problem with Battlefield 1 and what absolutely breaks the tempo of the game. The sniper sweet spot. Now for those who don't know, the sniper sweet spot is a range at which a gun will instantly one-hit kill you. And you recon players, you know your guns, you know your range, you know your positions, and you are a bloody nightmare to get around. From what I have observed, from limited play, I admit, camping is a huge problem in Battlefield 1 because the mechanics favor it. And if you're using an assault rifle equivalent, you have zero chance of winning the fight. Compare it to Battlefield 2042. Or even Battlefield 5, which thankfully removed this mechanic. My conclusion, keep the game fast, never bring back the sweet spot, and keep assault rifles able to fight snipers. So, last question. Tone of the game. I'll make this one quick because this is a long video. Whatever you do, the game has to keep shenanigans, like C5 buggies.
Crush the enemy.
Enemy vehicle destroyed.
Or flying around with your mate on a pontoon taking out nightbirds. Even Battlefield 1 had a good sense of humor when they gave us the Leviathans, the behemoths.
Our airship has arrived.
For the record, this is the first time I've ever used this. I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's a giant airship armed with cannons and machine guns. What can possibly go wrong? Let's just fly over the enemy position, shall we?
A few moments later.
Mistakes were made, lessons were learned, but let's not point any fingers. Right, I'm going to knock it on the head there. Thank you very much if you made it all the way to the end. If you haven't, please do take the survey because it's a great initiative. And if you'd like a part 2, do let me know. There's more I'd love to discuss. Otherwise, have a great weekend. Catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.